Hello, and welcome to our virtual personal and household emergency preparedness session. Vancouver is located on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples who have lived on these lands since time immemorial. For over a millennia, the nations have stewarded these lands and waters in sustainable, resilient, and adaptive ways to ensure prosperity for future generations. The City of Vancouver will continue to learn from the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh on appropriate practices for mitigating, preparing for, responding to, and recovering from emergencies and disasters. Let's start with some preparedness fundamentals. Everyone from the individual up to the federal government has a role to play in preparedness, so it's great that you're starting today with this video. Emergencies can happen anywhere and at any time, often without warning, which is why it is important to be prepared before an emergency happens and not wait until something is already happening. Being prepared doesn't need to be difficult or costly. You don't need to think and plan for every possible scenario. There are common consequences that can happen in an emergency, such as loss of power, water, or telephone service, or access to food and medical supplies. You might be more prepared than you think and already have necessary items around your home. You will learn a lot of different tips and tricks throughout this video, and we have tried to simplify these to make it easier, but start small and build from there. Every bit helps. Today we will go over the 5 steps to getting prepared for an emergency. Number 1, know your hazards. Number 2, make your plan. Number 3, gather your supplies. Number 4, stay informed. And the final step, number 5, get connected. The first step to get prepared is to know what hazards you actually need to prepare for. These are the top hazards of concern in Vancouver. It's helpful to think about these as they can assist you in preparing your plan and your emergency kit. This is not an exhaustive list, and if you spend time in other parts of BC, there may be others to consider. Some of these can happen at the same time, like extreme heat and wildfire smoke. With climate change, these types of extreme weather events will continue to become more frequent and more severe, and responding to them will continue to be more complex. Earthquakes are common in BC, with an average of 3,000 reported each year. Most are too small to be felt, but earthquakes strong enough to cause structural damage can and will occur. We will face a major earthquake, we just don't know when. Beyond this list of top hazards, there could be some specific hazards that could affect you at home, at work, where you frequently visit, or on your mode of transportation. It's always good to do a scan of what these might be. For example, if an industrial rail line is nearby, how would a rail incident impact you? In your home, furniture or other items that are not secured in place, such as bookcases, water heater, mirror, and pictures, could cause injuries during an earthquake, for example. Finally, beyond physical space, think about how your personal context will affect you in an emergency. How will different risks impact you personally, and what can you do to mitigate any of these risks? What challenges may make things harder, and what skills do you have that will make things easier? The good news is we can mitigate some of these hazards we just talked about. Here are some steps you can take to make your home safer. Start by focusing on where you spend the most amount of your time. For most of us, this could be our bedroom if we're getting the recommended 8 hours of sleep. Heavy objects like tall bookshelves or chests of drawers and hot water tanks are good items to secure so they don't move or fall in an earthquake. Don't have heavy frames or pictures above your bed or other things that could fall on you when you're asleep. Move heavy objects onto lower shelves or cabinets and have lighter objects higher up, as those are the ones that will fall the farthest. Secure medicines, cleaning supplies, and flammables, and keep flammables away from sources of heat. Have a working smoke alarm and carbon monoxide detector and check on these every 6 months. Have a fire extinguisher and know how to use it. Some emergencies we can't stop from happening, but we can make ourselves safer so they cause less injuries and damage when they do. Now that you have thought about the hazards, the next step is to make an emergency plan to minimize the impact of these hazards and prepare to respond if they cause an emergency. A general emergency plan can help with most scenarios and hazards. An emergency plan is a playbook for how you and your household will respond to a disaster. Knowing what to do will reduce anxiety and help keep you focused and safe. When you create your family emergency plan, you will want to choose emergency contacts, plan meeting points where you can reconnect with household members, include health and other personal and insurance information. It is common to forget even basic information in an emergency. Write your plan down and talk about it with your family or your household. You can download a fill-in-the-blanks template from preparedbc.ca/emergency plan. We'll now go into more detail about the contents and some considerations that should be included in your plan. Being able to communicate is vital during an emergency. In your emergency plan, save or write a list of people you can call for help during an emergency. Ideally, one contact should live far enough away that they won't be affected by the same emergencies. So for example, an out-of-province contact. It's also helpful to have at least one contact who lives in your community for a more personal or localized emergency. You will want everyone in your household to have this contact information in case you are apart when an emergency happens. Your cell phone may run out of power or be damaged, so ensuring everyone has a physical list of contacts is important. When you call these contacts for help, you may simply ask them to let others know that you are safe, or may ask them for assistance picking up family members. Alternatively, they could do research for you on what happened, where to get help, and other important safety information. When a major emergency has occurred, telecommunication channels may be stressed or damaged. Try using methods that are more likely to be successful when there is a large demand on telecommunications, such as an SMS or a text message, or social media, which is a great way to let many people know at once that you are okay. During an emergency, it's important to gather with your loved ones to make sure everyone is safe. You might not be together when disaster strikes. You can make it easier to find each other by choosing emergency meeting places ahead of time. Pick at least 2 meeting points. One is closer to your home, such as a nearby landmark or neighbor's house. This location is helpful for something like a fire where you may need to evacuate your home quickly, but the rest of the neighborhood isn't affected. Then pick an alternate spot away from your immediate neighborhood but within walking distance for a larger situation. We recommend an open space like a park, field, or even a parking lot, which can be safer than a damaged building after an earthquake. Ensure all household members know these locations and know where to meet without having to communicate via telephone. You may also want to consider having different meeting locations for times when you're at work or at school versus when you're closer to home. Your plan should also include considerations around your home. Know your home's emergency exits, and if you live in an apartment or condo, also make a note of the building map and know all of your available exit routes. Make sure everyone in your household knows these routes as well. Identify alternate routes out of your neighborhood in case you need to evacuate. Sometimes the safest thing in an emergency is to stay where you are. This can be called to shelter in place. Pre-identify rooms that are the most insulated. Know where the hot, smoky, or cold air may come in. Consider curtains that will keep air out in the summer and cool air out in the winter. Save or write down the contact info of your utility companies, your insurance, and your landlords in your emergency plan. Know where to find your utilities and how to shut them off safely. If you live in an apartment building, you might not have access to these individually, so know who has access and know how to turn these off. In your plan, write down any relevant health information for household members and loved ones. Don't forget your pets. This includes your care card number, family doctors, medications, medical equipment, and any other health and personal information. Again, it can be easy to forget things in an emergency, so it's important to write everything down. Even if it's a medication that you take every day, you may forget the name or dose, so make sure it's all included in your plan. You may not be at home when an emergency happens. Your plan should consider and answer the following questions. There are no right or wrong answers, and your plan should be customized for what makes the most sense for you and your loved ones. What options do you have for staying safe when away from home? Do you have sturdy shoes if you needed to walk home? And have you practiced the long walk home, which is the likely route that you might need to take if you ever had to walk home during a disaster? Do you have a friend or family that lives nearby or close to your workplace? And if you couldn't get home, do you have emergency supplies in your car or at work? And do you have what you need if you needed to stay there for a longer period of time? Think about these when we get into the next steps to preparedness, which is gathering supplies. Consider who will check on your pets or pick up your kids or dependents if you can't immediately get to them. For example, tell people who need to know if you plan to go to someone's home or shelter at work if it's dark outside and will make your way home when it's light out again. If you're a parent or guardian of school-aged children, you may also need to plan for the possibility that they might still be in school when an emergency happens. Know the school's emergency policies, designate someone you know to pick up children if you are unable, save or write down the contact info for the schools that your children attend, and some schools and daycares will have plans that may have already asked you to provide a kit and some of this information, like the name of an alternate guardian. Now that we've talked about hazards and emergency plans, let's talk about gathering supplies. Having the right supplies on hand will give you peace of mind, safety, and comfort during an emergency situation. Having supplies and a plan will also help you to be self-sufficient for a few days without outside help or support, which is important for larger emergencies when first responders are busy with priority cases. There are multiple types of kits, but it helps to think of the two main scenarios. One is that you need to stay where you are for an extended period of time, and the other is that you need to leave quickly. We will look at when you would use these kits and what to put in them. You may be surprised at how many items you may already have. Start with what you have and see what is left to gather. You can buy pre-made kits, but remember that no one can buy a kit and store it and be done. Make sure you go through it so you know how to use everything and you add all of the required personal items. A home emergency kit should contain at least 3 to 7 days worth of supplies to keep everyone safe and comfortable until you can leave your home. Prepare for longer if you can. Scenarios where a kit would come in handy include earthquakes, disease outbreaks, severe weather or storms, power outages, and hazardous material spills. For these hazards, you would have access to items in your home, but you can't always go to the store to get something you may be missing. You may also hear this called a shelter-in-place or an earthquake kit. These are some of the items to have in your home emergency kit. Storage can be difficult, especially in smaller apartments. Fit things where you can, under a bed or a hall closet. The important thing is having everything you need at home when it is difficult or possibly dangerous to leave. If you have camping or outdoor equipment, this can be a useful start to your emergency kit. Other items can be found at local stores, dollar stores, or thrift stores. Don't forget personal and comfort items with your supplies. Make sure to check your supplies annually to rotate through expired items such as food, water, batteries, and medications. Store enough food and water to last you and your family and your pets for at least 3 to 7 days. More if you can. You don't need to have specific emergency food. Anything like canned food or other non-perishable food will work. Personally, I store extra canned food such as soups and chilies and beans that I normally have in my pantry. When I run out of food in my pantry, I rotate through the food in my emergency kit and then refill my kit food. I never have to worry about expiration dates and nothing goes to waste. For water, you need 4 liters of water per person per day. Again, don't forget your pets. So times at least 3 days, this does add up. Bottled water has a long shelf life, or you can bottle your own water, but you should switch it out every 6 months. Again, storage can be difficult. Store as much as you can in the space that you have. Also consider getting larger collapsible containers that you can fill later, and then have some sort of water filtration system like drops or filter. The second scenario is that you may need to leave immediately in the event of an emergency. Be ready to go by having a smaller version of your emergency kit in an easy-to-access place in your home. When there is a threat to life and safety, you don't want to be gathering items at that point in time. You might not have time or you might forget something important. Have your items prepared and ready to go so you have what you need and you can leave quickly. Make sure each person and pet in your household has a grab-and-go bag for themselves. These include everything you may need to keep yourself safe and comfortable when you're away from home. Most importantly, your grab and go bag should include personal items that are not found in pre-made kits. These include extra pairs of glasses, medications, change of clothes, cash and small bills, digital copies or photocopies of important documents such as your birth certificate and financial records, and don't forget small personal or cultural items that can be difficult to replace. Everyone has special or unique needs that they need to consider when planning and gathering emergency supplies. If you rely on a prescription, ask your care provider how to keep an extra supply or valid prescription in your kit. Think about your communication needs during a disaster. If you use hearing aids, stock extra batteries. If a household member has difficulty communicating verbally, have a written pad and pencils handy. Think about mobility devices and other medical equipment and consider manual backups. Ensure that pets and service animals are part of your preparations, including toys, pet crates, leash, food and water, medications, etc. If you have a loved one in a care home, ask them about their emergency plans for evacuations and continuation of care. Provide copies of your emergency plan to family, friends, and other caregivers. Start with your home kit and grab and go bag. When those are prepared, you might want to consider these other types of emergency kits. You don't need all of these, but some of these kits may be more relevant to you than others. If you have a car, it's a good idea to store items there so you always have access to them on the go. Consider the 2021 atmospheric river flooding when people were stranded in their cars on the highway. Some hazards might require specialized kits. During the early days of the pandemic, a self-isolation kit was recommended with essentials. During the summer, creating a kit with cooling tools can help on hot days. The fourth step to preparedness is staying informed. To make good decisions during an emergency, you need good information. It's important to know where to go and where to find official sources of information during an emergency. This can include the city and our website, vancouver.ca, and our various social media platforms, the province, Emergency Info BC, which shares information about large-scale emergencies on their website in emergencyinfobc.ca and on Twitter at emergencyinfobc, and Environment Canada, which issues official weather alerts such as extreme rainfall and heat warnings. They can be found at weather.gc.ca or the Weather Can app. Local news, such as radio and TV, are also trusted sources of information, and in a large emergency, radio may be the only form of communication that is continuing to work. It's very important to only call 911 for emergency assistance when you need fire, police, or ambulance to come to you. Do not call 911 for general questions or information about an emergency, such as, was that an earthquake? Or is there a tsunami, or where should I go? They do not have that information, and we want to keep phone lines clear for people who need emergency assistance. The City of Vancouver uses Alertable to notify residents, visitors, and commuters of significant and urgent local emergencies, which may require immediate action, such as evacuation. If you download the app, you will receive important public safety information directly to your smartphone. Alertable is used in addition to the usual methods of notifying people about significant emergencies, such as door-to-door notification, loudspeakers, and media or social media. However, we recommend using the app as it will be the fastest way for emergency teams to reach you with important safety instructions. After downloading the app, follow the in-app instructions for setup. You will be asked to set your preferences for the types of alerts you would like to receive and include alerts from City of Vancouver, Drive BC, and Environment Canada. To change your settings later, open the app and select Settings to adjust and personalize alerts and sounds. The app can be downloaded on Google Play or the Apple App Store. Visit vancouver.ca/get-alerts for more information. In Vancouver, both Alert Ready and the Alertable app will be used to notify you of an urgent incidents where you may need to take quick action. The systems are used for different types of emergencies, with the province managing Alert Ready alerts and the City of Vancouver issuing alerts for local emergencies. The best way to get all relevant notifications for the City of Vancouver is to download the Alertable app. The last and most important step to preparedness is to get connected. In a major emergency, your neighbors are often your first responders. Unfortunately, the larger the disaster, the longer it will take for outside assistance. This means you and your neighbors will need to help each other to get by. Studies of emergency events from around the world have shown that communities that are more connected, where neighbors know each other and know how to help one another, recover more quickly from emergencies. This includes a study of the 2011 Japanese earthquake and tsunami with the headline, "In Disaster Recovery, Social Networks Matter More Than Bottled Waters and Batteries." So although having emergency supplies is important, who is in your kit is even more important than what is in your kit. Knowing who your neighbors are and how you can help each other before an emergency is one of the best ways that you can be prepared. There are many different ways you can connect and get to know your neighbors better. Community resilience comes from collaborative problem solving and community care, built at the speed of trust. Getting to know your neighbors and working on projects together, regardless of what they are, builds muscle memory for when emergencies strike. You can work together to create neighbor-to-neighbor emergency plans or other specific emergency preparedness actions, but just starting with social events can help you to connect. You can hold events such as a monthly potluck where neighbors share their skills, hobbies, or culture. Asset mapping is a good way to find out who your neighbors are and what assets or vulnerabilities there are in the neighborhood. You can mark on the map who might need extra assistance and who has the skills to help. You can also mark meeting locations or different hazards. Communication networks are great ways to stay connected every day and during emergencies. These can be Facebook groups, WhatsApp chats, newsletters, phone trees, bulletin boards, etc., or any combination of these ideas. Finally, just helping out in big or small ways, it doesn't have to be a formal process. Building trust before an emergency can go a long way to help relying on each other during an actual emergency. The City of Vancouver has a Resilient Neighborhoods Toolkit if you are interested in hosting your own workshop. The steps we reviewed today will help you get yourself and your family and household prepared for an emergency. By knowing your hazards, making your plan, gathering your supplies, staying informed, and getting connected, you are taking steps toward being knowledgeable, ready, and more resilient. Take a moment to think about one activity that you learned today that you are going to do in the next 2 weeks to help you get more prepared. Write that down or tell a friend to keep yourself accountable. Remember, start with where you are and with what you have. Do what you can and build from there. Every little bit helps. Refer to our website, vancouver.ca/beprepared for reminders and for more information. Thank you so much for attending.